A man with a magical crayon has appeared in our world, and everything he draws becomes real. One day, this crayon ends up in the hands of a very bad person, and you can't even imagine what he decided to draw. A little boy named Harold lives inside a book. He has a purple crayon, and with its help, he can draw amazing things and find himself in the most incredible adventures. Harold creates two best friends, Moose and Porcupine, and never parts with them. Many years pass. Harold grows up and continues to explore his magical world. He can do anything with his purple crayon. But one thought keeps bothering him. He drew this entire world and created his friends. But who drew Harold himself? It turns out that Harold's creator is now a very old man. He lives in the real world and believes that drawn characters can never cross over into reality. Harold refuses to believe that, so he draws a door to the real world with his magic crayon, says goodbye to his friends, and sets out to find his creator. He flies through the portal and turns into a real living man wearing a blue jumpsuit. The protagonist finds himself in a park, amazed by the bright colors and fascinating people around him. And best of all, he still has his magic crayon. Back home, Moose and Porcupine start feeling lonely, so they decide to peek through the door leading to the real world. Moose falls into the portal and turns into an ordinary black guy. He crawls on all fours and soon notices a mirror in front of him. Harold finds a stall offering free clothes and decides to change so he can look more modern. Soon after, the main character runs into Moose, now in the form of an ordinary man. Both are completely shocked to see each other again. They notice an old man sitting on a nearby bench and assume he might be Harold's creator. Unfortunately, the old man starts swinging his cane at them. He's definitely not the one they're looking for. Harold draws a bicycle with his purple crayon, and it instantly becomes real. The two friends hop on and set off on their journey. At the same time, Porcupine steps through the door into the real world and turns into a quirky girl with purple hair and a wild hairstyle. She looks like a true scene girl. Meanwhile, a car is speeding down the highway. A woman named Terry is behind the wheel, while her imaginative son Mel is sitting in the back seat. Terry is talking on the phone and gets distracted from the road, so she hits Harold and Moose. Fortunately, the protagonists are completely fine. Terry's car has a flat tire, so Harold uses his magic crayon to draw a spare one and gives it to her. Mel sees this and becomes convinced that they must be real wizards. It turns out the boy has an imaginary friend, a dragon named Carl. Seemingly, Harold and Moose can see him too. Porcupine notices the same old man with a cane in the park, but soon realizes he isn't the one they're looking for. Terry offers Harold and Moose a ride home. Unfortunately, the protagonists don't actually know where they live, so Mel asks his mom if these nice guys can stay at their place for the night. The woman agrees and shows Harold and Moose to their room. It looks more like a storage room, but they still love it. Moose soon falls fast asleep, but Harold suffers from insomnia. He notices Mel is awake too. The two meet secretly downstairs, where the boy shows Harold his drawings. They decide to help each other. Harold shows Mel his magic crayon and draws a butterfly that instantly comes to life. Excited, the boy takes the crayon and draws a large flying spider. Very original, but pretty creepy. Porcupine searches everywhere for Harold and eventually sneaks into someone's house. She tries on a stranger's jacket and steals a piece of cake. A moment later, the police pull up outside and she has to make a quick escape. Morning comes. Terry goes down to the kitchen and finds the table covered with pies. Harold, Moose, and Mel are happily eating them for breakfast outside. Terry also notices that someone fixed the roof and painted her house overnight. It's now bright purple. After hearing the story about the magic crayon, Terry decides her guests must be lunatics and demands that the men leave her house immediately. Harold breaks off a piece of his crayon and gives it to Mel. Instead of going to school, the boy joins Harold and Moose. They create some delicious ice cream and set out to find the man who created Harold. The main character spots another old man on a lawn and rushes to hug him, only to get knocked out cold. Harold then realizes they need to visit a place that holds all the world's knowledge. He draws skateboards and rollerblades for himself and his friends and they race off to the library. At that time, a new book presentation is taking place there. The author is a not-so-famous writer named Gary Natwick. Mel introduces Gary to his new friends. It turns out that Gary is secretly in love with Terry, so he's willing to do anything to impress her. Naturally, he agrees to help Harold. The problem is, there are about 500 million old men living on Earth. Half joking, Gary suggests that Harold fly up into the sky in a plane and write a message for his creator. And that actually sounds like a great idea. Harold immediately draws an airplane with his magic crayon, and it becomes real. Gary sees this, runs to the bookshelf, and finds a book titled Harold and the Purple Crayon. He smiles slyly. Harold takes off in his purple plane, with Moose and Mel by his side. They barely avoid crashing into a skyscraper. The protagonists write Terry's phone number across the sky in glowing purple letters, hoping that the old man will see it and call. After completing their mission, Harold and his friends jump out of the plane using a purple parachute. Unfortunately, the landing isn't very smooth, and someone ends up with a few bruises. Still, their message now shines brightly across the sky. Terry's phone starts ringing non-stop with calls from old men all over the country. Quite an unexpected result. Mel goes back to school, where he runs into a couple of bullies. A fight breaks out, and all three of them are immediately sent to the principal's office. Harold and Moose head to Ollie's, the store where Terry works. This supermarket has literally everything. Terry spots her new friends, but she's not so thrilled to see them. Right then, she gets a call from the school principal about Mel. The woman asks Harold and Moose to help her out at work, while she rushes off to deal with her son's problems. 6 minutes later, the protagonists realize that working isn't nearly as fun as they thought. Moose gets excited when he sees a giant screen showing a real moose, while Harold decides to use his magic crayon to grant the customer's wishes. Frankly speaking, it doesn't go too well. For example, creating a real helicopter and a live puma inside a store is definitely a bad idea. Terry picks up her son from school and returns to work, only to be fired on the spot. Surprisingly, she doesn't take it too hard, since she's always hated that job anyway. Deep down, Terry dreams of becoming a famous pianist. When Harold finds out, he draws a purple piano right in the park and asks her to play something for them. The woman gladly agrees. Porcupine enters a cafe, steals some food, and tries to run away. The cops spot her and immediately give chase. She ends up hiding in a tree. Just then, Gary shows up in the park. He shows Harold and Moose the book he found at the library. Hey, that's their story. Moose wants to go back into the book, but that's impossible. Harold looks at the cover and realizes his creator's name is Crockett Johnson. Porcupine soon appears in the park too, and at last, all the friends are reunited. But the happiness doesn't last long, as the cops arrest them. The protagonists end up in jail. They need the magic crayon to escape. Moose manages to get it, and Harold quickly draws a hole in the wall so they can break free. Back at school, the bullies corner Mel again and lock him inside a supply closet. The boy grabs the piece of the magic crayon and draws his dragon, Carl. The mean boys definitely didn't see that coming. Mel runs away from school and reunites with Harold, Moose, and Porcupine. Together they draw a motorcycle and set off to visit Crockett Johnson. It's a wild, risky, but incredibly thrilling ride. Unfortunately, they're met with heartbreaking news. The man has passed away. Terry shows up outside the Johnsons' house. She tracked her son using the GPS on his phone. The woman begs Harold to leave her family alone and drives away with Mel. Devastated, Harold loses hope. Because of his despair, all the drawings begin to fade, including Moose and Porcupine. Even the spare wheel he once drew for Terry's car disappears, causing her and Mel to narrowly avoid a serious crash. Heartbroken and alone, Harold wanders the city, staring sadly at his magic crayon. That's when Gary finds him and takes him along. Gary offers to help Harold, but only if the protagonist gives him the magic crayon. Harold agrees, and the moment he does, Gary traps him inside a magical prison. In the middle of the night, Mel sneaks out of his house to look for Harold, since he's seen him leave with Gary. The boy eventually finds his friend, but the cunning writer traps him in the prison as well. Gary creates a magic chariot and sets off to show the whole world how cool he is. Luckily, Mel still has a small piece of the magic crayon. Using it, he draws a key and manages to break free. The two escape Gary's house in a hot air balloon, and soon all the things Harold once drew begin to reappear in the real world. Mel and Harold spot Gary and rush after him. They knock him off his chariot and demand that he give back the magic crayon. A fierce duel begins. Both men conjure all kinds of weapons and shields for defense. They even use catapults. At one point, Gary snatches a piece of the crayon from Harold's hand and swallows it. The treacherous writer absorbs all of its power, turning the surrounding grass into molten lava. He's no longer Gary. He's the main character of his own fantasy novel. And now, he's truly powerful. Mel calls upon his loyal dragon, Carl, who immediately charges at the villain, but Gary deflects the attack with ease. Moose and Porcupine show up to help Harold. The giant flying spider that Mel once drew joins the fight as well. It dives straight into the villain's mouth, forcing him to spit out the magic crayon. The world returns to normal. Mel hugs Carl, and Harold walks up to Gary. He promises to fulfill the writer's dream and draws a door leading to the fantasy world that Gary once imagined in his novels. The writer steps through immediately. Carl burns the door behind him, ensuring Gary can never come back to the real world. Harold, Moose, Porcupine, Terry, and Mel visit a museum dedicated to the works of Crockett Johnson. There, they discover many artifacts connected to their magical world. The museum curator gives Harold a letter from his creator. In it, Johnson explains that he made Harold to show the world the boundless power of human imagination. Harold, Moose, and Porcupine return home, back into their book. Before they go, Mel gives Harold a pack of colorful crayons. Now his world will be more colorful than ever.